All right, y'all. First tournament of the year is over, and I'm gonna just kind of give you an overview of what happened, what the fish were doing, who won it, how it was won. Um, so it was actually Lake Norman. I think was fishing pretty good. I was fortunate enough to have a boater who had at least a pretty good idea of what was going on in the lake. Now, in fairness, his plan fell apart on Saturday, which is so often the case when you're a boater. That's always the worry. Even though he'd been killing the fish um, on Friday, the day before, and the weather really wasn't all that different, the fish weren't doing what he thought they were doing. Um, Now, his pattern was correct. He was fishing the right thing. He was predominantly fishing a green pumpkin chatterbait, which, if you don't know what a chatterbait is, it's like a lead head jig with a skirt of any color. He was using one that was like a dark green color with little black specks in it. It's called green pumpkin. And then it has a blade on the front to make it shudder in the water. It rattles it around. Very popular. It's very good. It's a very good bait for covering water. It's good big fish bait. It's an excellent versatile lure. So his plan was to go in the backs of these pockets that he'd found in practice and use this green pumpkin chatterbait. And kind of right away, you could tell that it wasn't really the deal because he had caught all his fish previously in the last couple of days of practice. He'd done it in the morning, and that just wasn't happening for us on tournament morning. It was like, I don't know, it was in the mid 30s in the morning. It was cold, but it had been like that all week. So, again, I don't know what exactly made the fish move. But anyway, it was a long day. There was not much bite. There just wasn't that much going on. The fish were not there. Because usually when you're fishing and you're not getting bit on a place like Lake Norman, which has just, I mean, even if there's not that many big fish, there are fish for days. There are so many fish in Lake Norman. If you're not getting bit, then there's a problem. You're either A, using something that isn't attracting fish, like you're using the wrong bait for the wrong time, or you're just not around fish. And that was just the case. We were not around fish. I had one bite kind of earlier in the day, and it missed it. I mean, he ran straight at me as soon as he hit it, and I couldn't catch up to him. So I mean, I don't feel too bad about missing it. But when that's one of two bites you get in 8 hours of fishing, it kind of hurts. So he ended up bringing in two fish, one mid-sized spotted bass and a small largemouth, and I was without a fish up until the very last cast of the day, and I was reeling in the little red Spro rock crawler crankbait that I showed you in the preview video, and like with about 5 foot of line out, little 14-inch spot smacked it at the boat, and so I was able to weigh in the fish, which so I'll get into the results here in a second, but basically you get 20 points as a co-angler for competing, for just being there. But you get over 100 if you catch a fish. So the difference is huge. And so even though from a success standpoint, the tournament didn't go well at all. I mean, I think I finished 105th. There was like 150 boats, but I finished like 105th or something. So from a success standpoint, it was very poor. But at the same time, the difference between zeroing and catching a fish is huge. So I was able to avoid the skunk, which is really good. But yeah, and again, like I say, I didn't get a single fish to start off the first two events of last year, so I'm doing better than I was to start last year. So yeah, I'll get into the results a little bit. The winning boater weight was about what I thought it would be. It was about 18 and a half pounds. I think the lake still fished better than most people thought it would because you had weights into the 14-pound range, almost 20 spots down, which is pretty impressive, especially for a lake like Norman. I mean, it was like High Rock or Kerr. I don't think anyone would really care, but here it's kind of impressive. And then on the co-angler side, that's where I was wrong. Co-angler winning weight was like 15 and a half pounds, which is a really, really good bag for a co-angler. And I think that had to do, again, with what the fish were doing. And we figured this out once we got back to the boat ramp. Because basically, my boater, he'd talked to a couple of his friends who were co-anglers in the same tournament, and he told them that green pumpkin chatterbait was working really well, and they fished it a lot, but they didn't fish it in the back of pockets. They fished it a little bit further out in the wind, so on like points and the mouths of creeks and stuff with their boaters, and they killed it. I know one of those guys finished third, and the other guy finished, I think, seventh. So he was on the right pattern. We just didn't fish it in the right area. Those fish had moved back out, which I guess there had been a little bit of rain the previous night, and the temperature had still dropped just a little bit, and it had been just enough to move those fish out of the pockets. That just goes to show you how finicky those fish are. Because if you remember, I said I don't think the fish will do much different because of how consistent the weather is. So if the boater has a pattern, it should hold up. That wasn't the case. The fish just moved, not far, but they moved, and it made a big difference because we weren't on the fish. We couldn't find the fish all day, and it was not for lack of moving around in the pockets. We just never left the pockets, and that was our mistake. So again, this is all stuff I can learn from and get better from. But yeah, basically, the next event isn't for another 4 weeks. That's on Lake Wylie, which is a big lake that is downstream of Norman on the same river that Norman's on. So that tournament should be interesting. It'll be probably late spawn, post spawn. We'll see how the weather goes, but it'll probably be a much better bite. But I'm going to have to make sure I do a better job of preparing. Again, I don't know how much I could have done different. I know I was fishing the right stuff. That was the thing. The whole day I stayed locked in, and that's the hardest thing when you're getting 2 bites in a day is just staying mentally kind of honed in on what you're doing, even though you know you're fishing the right stuff. Because I did. I knew I was fishing the right techniques. I wasn't second guessing myself in any way. I was very confident what I was doing was going to work if I was around fish. We were not around fish. So in that regard, I guess I did a good job. I mean, I had my mind was locked into what I was doing all the way up until that final cast when I got that fish in. So I really thank the Lord for that fish because, I mean, I was this close to zeroing again. So I don't know. It was I was thinking back to last year in North Carolina, the only event where I didn't get one fish. Like only one. Where I'm saying I got more than one was the Norman one at the end of the year. And that's just unacceptable. As a co-angler, you've got to do better than that. You've got to have at least 2 or 3 fish per event if you want to be any kind of successful. So that is something to really work for this year. Again, my 4-pound goal that I set in the preview video, I didn't get to, obviously. But so I don't know. I'd probably give it like a B- simply because I didn't really screw up anything. And I did stay very mentally focused, but again, there's only so much success to be taken from, one dinky little spot. So either way, I think there's a lot to be learned from that tournament. And it leaves me really excited for the next one because after a poor tournament like this, you really want to get back out there and kind of make good on the problems and the stuff you've had to deal with. So hopefully I can do that. And I have some short clips from me at the boat ramp before the tournament, and then of the same fish that I caught after the event. It's like a 15-second clip. So I will play those right about now. Tournament morning. It is, let's see, 36, 37 degrees outside, so it could be worse. I kind of thought it was going to be in the high 20s, so we're doing better than I thought temperature-wise. It's going to be kind of chilly though today. Wind's going to be blowing a little bit. My boater seems like he's got a little bit of a plan, and like I said, hopefully that'll hold up because the weather's been pretty consistent, but we'll just have to see. I don't know. There's no way to really know. We're going to be fishing muddy water, going kind of fast with moving baits. I don't know, first tournament of the year. Thrilled. I'm bundled up. I got multiple layers on. I got my hat on. Driving this truck down to the ramp to park the boat because there's like 150 boats in this tournament. So we launched his boat at a ramp that's like a quarter of a mile down from the ramp where we launch at, and he's going to drive around and meet me, and I'm just going to park up there so that way it's easier to get it out once the tournament's over, but it's also easier to put it in when you've got 150 boaters trying to launch out of the same ramp. So that's the plan. Hopefully it'll go really well, and I will catch up with you guys later. Way better than I thought. Our guy's got one fish.
4 pounds 3 ounces.
It's a little guy, caught in the last cast of the day.
That's a fight, wasn't it?
Put him back, get him in the water. But yeah,
Joshua
saved my day. Last cast on the crankbait.
North Carolina.